Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Relationship Schools podcast. Grateful to have you here. Thanks for your reviews, subscribing, and sharing with a friend. That means a lot. Thanks for joining our group in Facebook. And you guys are awesome. So here's a review from LB on Apple Podcasts. LB says, I love this podcast and I love the Relationship School. I'm currently enrolled in Deeper and having an incredible journey into my true self. If you're willing to get to the very bottom of your tendencies, vicious patterns, and understand your needs to the core, this course will be most helpful. Thanks, Jason and Ellen, for the inspiration, and all my fellow classmates for doing this amazing work with me. Nice. Thanks, LB. Good to have you here. Psyched you're in Deeper. All right. In this episode, I have a friend of mine, Destin Gerek, who's been on the podcast before, episode 98. We dove into male sexuality, and we're going to go another step today. More on male sexuality. Specifically, we're going to talk about the two biggest issues men face in the bedroom. And primarily, we're talking about erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, okay, to use these technical terms. I call it erectile intelligence and early ejaculation. So it gets juicy in here, and Destin's got a lot of amazing experience, particularly as a sex educator, a tantric coach, just a dude who has been around the block when it comes to sexuality. His former name was Erotic Rockstar, in case that gives you any indication of who this guy is. And he went by that name for many years, and wore makeup, and the guy was like full-on alter ego. And then he had a transformation. He's had many. I really like this guy because he continues to grow and evolve himself as a man. He was very active in the MeToo sort of conversation on Facebook. He cares a lot about men and helping men get empowered. He's now, since our last episode, he's a husband and a dad. He's got a 2-year-old girl. And he runs the Evolved Masculine. And he just came out with a book, which we're going to talk about, the Evolved Masculine book. And it's primarily for men. So this conversation is for you if you're a guy that wants to get more empowered in your life, but in particularly in the bedroom. And obviously, if you're a woman listening, or a non-binary person, I think you're still going to get a lot of value here, okay? So check it out. Let's get right into it with Destin Gerek. Welcome back to the show, Destin Gerek.
My pleasure. It's good to be back.
Yeah, man. So, dude, you've got a new book out. You are a dad. You got lots going on. That's right. The Evolved Masculine.
The Evolved Masculine, be the man the world needs and the one she craves. And I became a father since the last time I was on as well. My daughter is a little over 2 years old. So, 2 new births into the world.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, so listeners, if you want to go back and listen to Destin and I's first interview, it's episode 98. And we talked about, I think the title was From Porn to Presence. And there was a lot of value there. So we're going to kind of build off what we spoke about last time. And I want to specifically get into your book. There's a few chapters that really are pretty enticing. The whole book, but there's some that really draw me in. So we kind of covered your story last time, so I don't think we need to have you rehash that. But can you just for the listeners that maybe haven't met you, what's the headline in your life right now? Like just who are you in the world in like a minute?
Sure. So again, my name is Destin Gerek. I created a brand and company called the Evolved Masculine. I believe that today, probably arguably more than ever, we have a dearth of positive, healthy role models for men. And that particularly as we have this heightened conversation around toxic masculinity and the patriarchy, men are looking for, okay, I'm getting the message of what not to do and what not to be, but what am I supposed to be? What is possible? And I wanted to present it as a guidepost, a lighthouse that I created because I needed it. And it has turned out to be a very positive impact and force for so many other men who are also grappling with what it means to be a man, especially a good man in the 21st century, and how to form a healthier relationship to their masculinity.
Yeah, very cool. So in a nutshell, what is an evolved man this day in 2020? What does that look like?
Sure. Well, I think that one of the big places that is being highlighted right now has to do with men learning how to feel and be in touch with their emotional bodies. I think that there's some major missing pieces to that conversation that I'm trying to kind of poke in, like that there's a reason, that there are very real reasons why we have historically not been in touch with our feeling capacity. But it's an integration of the best parts of masculinity with the feminine parts of ourselves. No longer shunning her within, the feminine within, or shaming, blaming, making wrong the feminine within. Because first of all, I believe that that aspect of ways in which we learn to do that within ourselves plays a big role as to how and why it plays out in how men are with women as well.
Yeah.
And if we want to heal that externally, we have to heal it within. So there's that aspect, but we can't just simply collapse into or retreat into our feminine because of fear of our own masculinity, which I think that today there are too many men who are afraid of their masculinity, afraid of whether direct from internal fear or fear of the external, fear of being labeled a creep, fear of being accused of something criminal, one form or another, just kind of pulling back and shutting down, disengaging, disempowering, or going into anger and resentment. But I really view both of those reactions as being fear-based responses. And the evolved masculine doesn't allow himself to be ruled by those fear-based reactions. It's not to say that he can't ever feel his fear, but he allows himself to feel it and knows, okay, what is this moment calling me to rise up into? The evolved masculine embraces the rise of the feminine, embraces the rise of women, embraces her rise in power, her voice, her economic capacity, her leadership, and uses it as a mirror and as an inspiration to become more of what he's capable of becoming.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Just for the listener, you mentioned sort of the feminine within, just so we can unpack that, just so some people are like, what do you mean feminine within?
Sure.
You're sort of running under the assumption that people have a masculine side and a feminine side. Is that right?
Yes, I'm going to put it a little bit more in line with my beliefs. That I tend to think of masculine and feminine as these energies that permeate the universe. And these energies exist in everything at all times, and they exist in every single person. And we have within us the capacity to experience or to express anything. Now, due to a combination of nature and nurture, meaning our genes and hormones, as well as our environment and social expectations, we may gravitate towards certain ways of being or certain expressions, but we have the capacity to do or be anything. So I'm personally a big fan of always building capacity, always expanding what you are capable of doing, how you're capable of responding to any given situation, because in there, I believe, lies truest freedom. Freedom is choice. And when you expand choice, you expand your freedom. But from within that, what does this moment call for? What does this moment call for?
Yeah. And so just again, for the listener, I'm with you so far in terms of the masculine, feminine. I have one frame on my previous life was I had, so rejected and disowned my feminine. I was pretty emotionally constipated, right? And it wasn't until I was able to embody and reclaim that I could then accept women I was dating out here and their emotions, because I started to learn how to be okay with mine, right?
Yeah.
But I really liked what you said around because men especially in a kind of post MeToo awareness movement around, God, men, like, what are we doing here? Guys have gotten scared. Like, would you say that's true? There's just a portion of men out there that are now kind of hiding a little bit or scared or like, I can't show up as me because masculine is bad. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, like I said, I think that there are a lot of men who have had and are continuing to have a fear-based response in either of those two directions, either anger and resentment, pushback, backlash, or just kind of disengaging, trying to constantly kind of scanning for like, what am I supposed to say? What is expected? What's going to be okay? What's going to get the kudos from other people, maybe especially women or the woman in my life? Or even more so, you know what? I'm just going to zip my lip, sit down, and shut up because it's safer that way. If I say anything, I might get, have people jump down my throat and, or something could come out of the woodwork and it's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Yeah. And
it's understandable, but I don't know if that either gets us to the place where we're really wanting to go. Yeah.
It seems like when I saw you during that time, you were very active and you did a lot of amazing posts and you were very engaged. And I'm just so curious, like what was your big takeaway from what you learned talking to so many people, kind of getting in the debates and dialogues? Like what's the big takeaway there?
Well, first of all, this week, my own podcast, the Evolved Masculine podcast, so probably a couple weeks ago from when this releases, I had as my guest the author of Modern Manhood, Cleo Stiller, whose book was more from a journalistic perspective on this, speaking to a couple hundred men and drawing out their experiences through this whole catalyzation of the MeToo movement and sharing what she found. And it was extremely fascinating. I'm sure she'd make a great ghost for your show too, I'm sure.
Cool.
So I mean, I suppose one of the things that I learned through it was wow, like it just ended up being so much messier than I had hoped. When it was first catching fire, many men were dumbfounded, like, where'd this come from? Like, what's going on? But I'd been aware of the epidemic of sexual trauma since I was 17 years old. So, and I'm turning 42 in a month and change. So, so it for me, it was more of a sense of finally, and excited, like, yes, like I've been trying to figure out a way to express these things and to have these conversations with other men for so long. And I wasn't really feeling like I could get anywhere, or that I honestly felt like I had to sort of like trick men into having this conversation or into caring. Mm-hmm. And the one great benefit is I don't anymore. I can be much more direct. There's much more of a reference point for most men now around this. And I'm able to speak to these in a way that is easier for more men to hear. But I think I'd hoped that it was going to be smoother, and I wasn't necessarily expecting, the feminist women's empowerment side to be as messy on their side as from my lens it proved to be. I can understand why. Yeah. And I'm very compassionate for the why, but it's anything but a straight line. Totally. There are missteps, so to speak. There are things that could have been a lot cleaner, smoother, clearer on all sides. And I wish that it was, but you know what, I'm uncomfortable with and do my best not to kind of point fingers and blame and say, well, women should be doing differently. And this is what they're doing wrong. I think there's way too much of that in the world. And it's just like, all right, men, this is what is happening. What can we do in response to this? Yeah. How do we take ownership? How do we grow in the midst of this?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah. It seems like, it just seems like there's so much more work to do, but it's like the Band-Aid got ripped off and now it's like, oh, let's talk about this, which is so cool. I'm with you. And painful also to hear and witness the stories on both sides. But I think it's really cool how it's evolving, us as a species, and especially as the genders. If we genderfy it into this binary male versus female conversation, it's moving that conversation forward.
Yeah. And not always smoothly, but it is.
Yeah, it's bumpy.
It feels smoother now than it was a couple of years ago. And hopefully it will be smoother still a couple of years from now.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I want to get into your book a little bit.
Please.
You have this awesome section on understanding women and the feminine that I think is really helpful. And I just want to say thanks, man, for writing this book and also for helping us guys, and in particularly like providing an alternative frame to sort of the David Data model. Mm-hmm. I know in our last conversation you talked about being really grateful for David, but also, hey, I want to take the conversation a little further here, and I think you've done that in your book.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. There are places that I came to strongly disagree. And granted, I have the benefit of being 20 plus years younger than him and being able to stand on his shoulders, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were things that I learned through his work that I grappled with for a decade, trying to figure out my relationship to.
Yep.
And places where I ended up landing somewhere very different than where he landed.
Yeah, totally. In your book, you talk about, there's a chapter called Flipping the Script. And I just want to pull a quote out that I really liked, which is, you said, you need to make a mental shift from sex, this is for men, being something you get out of a woman, to your sexuality being a gift you can share with her. It's just like, oh. So explain that, unpack that reframe for us and why that's so important in a man's kind of sexual journey of fulfillment with a woman.
Yeah, well, I'm curious for you. You pulled the quote. 300 pages. That's what you zeroed in on. So let's see. So making the shift from sex being something you have to get out of a woman to your sexuality being a gift that you have to share with a woman. So this is a big deal, and different men are in different places on that continuum. But I think much of the training that we get as men in the larger culture is women are sexual gatekeepers. We're the ones who really want it. And not only that, but we're the ones who are supposed to always want it and always be ready. And if there's even a hint of a possibility, you better fucking pounce. Better pounce. Get it while it's there. And it's such an unhealthy way of dealing with any aspect of life. This is something you refer to as like a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. So it also it's really a weak position. And I think doesn't do well for our overall mental health, and causes us to further devalue our own worth and the worth of our own sexuality. It places she as the prize, then what are we? We're the ones who have to be constantly proving that we're enough, and that we're worthy. And so many men struggle with that as it is. So, but secondly, 100 years ago, people didn't seem to even really understand or believe that women had orgasms. And by people, I mean men. Didn't really understand that women had orgasms. Now, for the most part, we get that. Women have orgasms. Women have a sexuality. Women have a sexual desire of their own. And yet we're still operating under this notion that she is just this gatekeeper who either has to keep the man out or let the man in. Mm-hmm. Where is her sexuality and her desire in there?
Totally. Yeah.
So with the recognition, as women are increasingly owning their sexuality and desires, I think that a big part of the shift that we can make is, instead of being that constant push energy, trying to figure out how to get in and around her defenses, how do we intentionally spark that desire within her and then fan the flames of that desire, draw out that desire? So it's not just the pull energy. We're also learning more of how to play with the pull energy.
Yeah.
That's the whole enticing desire section or chapter in that section kind of explains more on that. But as far as the gift of your sexuality, I mean, for the listener, like, do you relate to your sexuality as a gift that you have to share and that you have to offer? How do you relate to your own sexuality? What is the shame? Is there any shame, guilt, fear still attached or associated to your own sexuality? What about your own genitals? The words that we use so much for our sex organs say a lot. Mm-hmm. You know, like even whether we're talking about, like, you know, words like prick and, you know, sword, or these like weaponized languaging, or like your junk.
Right.
That where and how do you honor your own body, your own sex, and the value that your sex can be for her? Because sex can be recreational, sex can be procreative, but sex can also be healing. Sex can also be transformative.
Oh, yeah. Hey guys, quick interruption here. Imagine a career that draws on your passion for personal growth and relationships, that harnesses your ability to support, challenge, and connect with others, that helps you develop as a person while you help other people do the same. What if you could earn a living while making an impact on thousands of people's lives and even on the future of society and how we treat each other? That'd be pretty cool, right? Well, that job does exist. It's the job of a relationship coach, and I believe that relationship coaches are going to play a crucial role in the future of our culture, not only in the US, but around the world. 1 in 2 marriages, guys, ends in divorce still. 3 out of 5 Americans are lonely. We have a loneliness epidemic and a looming mental health crisis. Couples that do conflict well live 10 years longer than couples who don't. Okay, that was on the Gottman podcast I interviewed them on. An estimated 80% of couples are headed in the direction of divorce within the first 4 to 5 years of marriage. Okay, that's also from the Gottmans. Relationship stress and chronic disease is destroying our quality of life, shortening our lifespan, bankrupting healthcare systems, and threatening the health of future generations. Okay, and we're not really prepared to address this adequately. Because the only way to prevent or reverse the loneliness epidemic and helping people feel empowered in their relationships is by changing how we really navigate conflict, specifically. Of course, how we listen, how we parent, how we work through our triggers, and how we communicate our needs. Traditional therapy, while awesome in some settings, is just not set up to do this, guys. It's too broad. The vast majority of trauma and mental health issues stem from a relationship issue. Bottom line is we need people like you, perhaps, who can help provide the support and challenge to help people transform how they show up relationally. We need empathetic and compassionate people with the skill and street-level tools for human connection and a passion for change and transformation. My job is to make sure that people like you have all the training they need to do their jobs well. And this is, of course, I'm talking about a relationship coach. A career as a relationship coach can be incredibly fulfilling, personally and professionally. It really could change your life and the world. All right. I'm stoked to announce that we are slowly enrolling our fall training program for coaches. And this is a big deal. We're increasing the program. We're making it easier and more accessible for people that live internationally. So if you've thought, gosh, I want to come to the relationship school, but I live in Australia or Europe, I can't afford to fly, don't worry, you don't have to. Okay, you can now train as a virtual relationship coach, and you don't even have to come to Boulder, Colorado, or buy one plane ticket. Okay, go to relationshipschool.com/RCT if you want to get the details. All right, and we are taking applications right now. Okay, and you want to get in your application soon because the price will continue to go up throughout the summer. Okay, guys, relationshipschool.com/RCT if you want to check it out and apply. All right, back to the podcast. You have a chapter called "All Men Are Sexual Healers." Maybe we can talk about that. So
it's a potent chapter, if you ask me.
Yeah, totally agree. If we guys can kind of grok what you're saying here, that, okay, I'm not just about getting in. It's not just about knocking at the door and she holds the keys. Oh, right. She has her own desire. And how do I fan that flame, right? Can you give us a practical tip that a man can do to fan the flame?
Yeah, I'm going to say one thing that's a necessity. I think I touched on this in the book, but in this process of working with so many men around this, the core foundation is you as a man. You have to believe that you are actually worthy of being desired. This to me is like, something that I came to understand as I was trying to kind of study and understand the whole pickup movement and its phenomenon and all these methodologies of trying to essentially like trick her into going home with you or into sex with you. And it presupposes the fact that you, as you are, at your core, are not worthy or desirable. The only way she will want you is if you press the right buttons,
right?
Do right tricks.
Yeah, change yourself, do a technique, do a trick.
And so you can actually end up being reinforcing these really unhealthy beliefs within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Your own internal validation, ownership of yourself, your value, your worth, who you are, and what you have to bring to the world is so fundamental to how you show up as a man and so fundamental to your attractiveness to others that bringing your attention there is going to do far more for you, especially long term, than any master these 3 tricks to get her to go home with you tonight. Yeah,
absolutely. And we guys like tips.
Yeah.
Not a hack. We won't call it a hack because we don't want to, buy into what you're saying here. We want to go, no, actually just like, what can I do to cultivate, a really reciprocal, great sex dynamic with my partner, girlfriend, future partner? How can I fan that flame?
Well, again, I need to make a list, but a couple of simple things is, how do you present yourself? Do you intentionally put attention into being attractive for the woman in your life or for a woman? Many men don't put that much attention in because there's not... Historically, it didn't really matter. Women's sexual desires weren't even considered or thought about. Women were supposed to dress up and make themselves look sexy for men.
Mm-hmm.
There was no need to or attention. The men dressed for other men. Men presented themselves to impress each other. But there is a reciprocal dynamic between men and women. We are in connection with one another. And particularly as women are owning their power and their ability to want what they want, we need to develop our relationship to that. It doesn't mean simply coerce yourself into what you think is wanted, but at the same time, just as you would likely prefer a woman who puts some attention into presenting herself attractively, women would prefer that of you as well.
Okay, cool.
So we'll start there. But from there, when you notice that first moment that like you want it, you want the sex. And then what would happen if you prolonged the experience, the look, the kiss, the licks, the touches in other parts of the body? What if you prolonged it until you actively felt her want, her crave?
Mm-hmm.
Not her letting, but her want and crave.
Yeah.
And then what if you instead shifted your mindset for when you felt that want from her wasn't like, all right, it's on, but rather now it really begins. Now is where those enticing desire games can really start. Now you feel her desire towards you. How can you intentionally increase the sexual tension there so that her desire, it's not just she has the opportunity to feel her desire, there's an opportunity for her desire to grow. So there needs to be space that you create for that sexual desire to grow.
Yeah.
Space for her to be, it's difficult for her to really fully feel her desire when she has to feel that she has to be defending against your desire pushing into her.
Totally. It's like a guy wants to come over and pour gasoline, right, on the fire or something, like, hurry up, like, so we can get after it. And you're saying the space actually is pretty key, right?
It is, because, like, again, these are generalities. There are some men who are wired more this way than some women, but as a whole, that experience of that fire burning from within, that yearning, that intense, like, needing it, like, that's what she's craving and wanting more than you're digging her.
Yeah.
Because it's actually a lot easier for her to experience some guy in her than it is for her to experience a guy who will really help her build that feeling within her.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's say he's doing that. I love this. Let's kind of keep going here. So he's doing that, and he feels her desire, but he starts to maybe feel his unworthiness, or something gets triggered in him around his performance stuff. And now she really wants him, and now he feels pressure to do it right. And so he loses an erection, he ejaculates early. So two of the most common issues a guy has, right? Like, what does he do?
Well, first of all, that's part 3, sexual self-mastery of my book.
Yeah, and by the way, there are some really helpful tips in there.
I hope so. This is kind of bread and butter of my business, is addressing those two issues. It is such a major thing for so many men, and men for whom it is an issue, it is such a big issue. So in some ways I feel it's a little cart before the horse, that one, if you're really struggling with those two issues, it's less likely that she's going to be in the same level of deep yearning fire.
Yeah.
So the start there really has to do with your relationship to yourself, and a willingness. This gets back to that same worthiness part of doing your inner work around deepening your self-love and self-acceptance. What is in the way of you being the man that you really want to be? And within that, what would it take for you to love and accept yourself exactly as you are, while you are still in process of becoming more?
Yeah.
So that's a really powerful combination. I speak of it as a dance between self-acceptance and self-mastery, and how both are really key. That self-acceptance without that commitment to self-mastery or commitment to more, it just leads to complacency.
Yeah.
But if you have this drive for self-mastery, drive for improvement, but there's no self-acceptance, self-love underneath it, you could just keep doing more and more and more and more, but you still kind of hate yourself.
Yeah, and you're just trying to fill that kind of void. Yeah.
Yeah. So join a men's group. Listen to more of Jason's podcast, the rest of his work, the work that we do within the Evolved Masculine membership community. Surround yourself with other men who see you and celebrate you, who want the best for you. Shadow work can be great to really allow yourself to look into and dive into the parts of yourself that you try to hide away. A willingness to face those parts of yourself can really do wonders to coming to that deeper self-acceptance and self-love.
Mirror work you mentioned in your book.
Mirror work is fantastic.
Self-pleasure in front of a mirror is huge. That's been big for me. There's again, you have some good tips like that in the book. And I just want to keep speaking to this guy who struggles sexually. And I know for me, and I think I shared this on the podcast interview we did a while back, where when I was losing my erection, the big thing was what David Cates, who you know, taught me, was to trust my cock and trust my body and trust my sensitivity. And I had no idea how utterly sensitive I was in the bedroom. And that's been immensely helpful for me to slow down and really stay connected to myself and my partner. So that's another just offering there.
A major mentor of mine, Joseph Kramer, he was a first major mentor. He spoke of the wisdom of the cock. That if, for example, if you're not getting or maintaining an erection, then maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's some sort of message that your cock knows that your mind is not letting you know. So
absolutely true for me.
Can you say more? Like what was that message?
Yeah, that something was off in me or my partner. Like I'm picking up on the subtlest of cues, a look on the face, a tone of voice. Wait, do you like this? Do you don't like it? And just my body was responding. And then my mind was trying to override that to say, hurry up, let's get in there. Let's have sex. What are you doing? And so it created this tug of war in myself. But so much of the work for me was to slow down and listen and then get my partner's buy-in that this is a process and can we hang in there? Because initially, of course, I would collapse into shame, right? And drop her, which a lot of guys do also, is they go into their shame pile and then they kind of lose her even more. So it can be
whether you're not having an erection when you're wanting it or you're losing it or you just ejaculated and neither of you were quite ready for it, the practice really is, can you be okay with that?
Right.
Can you be okay with that? It's really amazing how your response in the moment plays such a major role in what your lover's response to that moment ends up being.
Yep.
If you go into a shame spiral and pitying yourself and disappointment and upset, she's a lot more likely to be disappointed and upset and view the whole experience negatively. If you treat it more like it's not a big deal, she's a lot more likely to treat it like it actually wasn't that big of a deal.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Thanks for that reminder. Cool. You also talk about the breath being important in our sexuality, and sort of my takeaway there is if we can relax, because so many guys get tight during sex, and you're sort of a proponent of relax your body, and just breathing can be one of the ways we can relax, and it actually could create more synergy and chemistry and electricity between the two of you. Is that right?
Yeah. So this is one of those things that as you practice it outside of the bedroom, it's easier in the bedroom. As you practice it inside the bedroom, it's easier outside of the bedroom. So it's how you engage with life as well. In the face of intensity, can you be relaxed, at ease, centered and grounded in the face of that intensity?
Yeah.
In the face of turn on and pleasure in your body, can you just simply be with that pleasure in your body? The tension is going to drive you towards ejaculation. And chances are it's not what you're wanting in the moment. Learning how to relax in the face of pleasure makes it easier for that sensation to flow through your body instead of staying stuck in your groin and then kind of popping out the one way that you know it.
Well, let me ask you a question about that, though, because you promote sort of guy kegels, I think, in your book, if I remember right. And there's a tension there where we could be flexing our perineum to sort of train the PC muscle to not ejaculate so much. And so I can see myself or a guy in the bedroom that's like, oh, I don't want to ejaculate, going into tension to try to stop. So how do I not interpret this as you contradicting yourself? Like, what do you mean?
I think you need to reread that chapter. So you need to build the strength of your PC muscles, the pelvic floor muscles, as well as strengthen your awareness of this musculature. So you need, in that, you're learning how to both be able to squeeze, but also being able to relax and let go. And each has their time and place in that process. So if you're unconsciously going into tension as you're getting aroused, that is more likely to drive you towards ejaculation. That's the point where you're learning how to relax your pelvic floor muscles. Relax, and not just your pelvic floor muscles. It can also start in your inner thighs, your buttocks, your abs. Learning how to just let those go, working with your exhale and letting go of that musculature helps feel that greater relaxation in your body and a greater ease and easier to last longer. And in those moments where some of this is starting to get a little advanced, but if you are trying to, like you're at that point of no return, which I look at as plan B. Okay. We'll go here for a moment because I get asked this a lot. So what do you do? What do I do if I'm about to come so that I don't, whatever? I'm like, okay, I'll answer that question for you, but no, that's plan B, not plan A.
Right.
Plan A is learning to keep that energy circulating, keep it moving through the body, keep it moving through the body. When you keep it moving through the body, you're not right at that edge about to come. Mm-hmm. It's consistently flowing. You're experiencing pleasure through the entire body. But let's say somewhere in there,
plan B.
you misstep or what have you, you lose consciousness, presence for a moment. You do find yourself at that edge. That's the point where creating a seal, which it can be at first a lot like squeezing in with everything that you've got. But that's sort of like my 2-year-old in her potty training process. At first, she's like, I have to pee, and like you can squeeze her legs together, trying so hard to not pee. Chances are you're not like that today. Yeah. It's an almost maybe even unconscious action on your part. There's slight muscular changes in your pelvis that you can do without any real thought. And I do believe that we can get there in the same way in regards to our ejaculatory reflex. I sometimes refer to it tongue-in-cheekly like a second potty training that I think boys should be learning in their adolescence.
For sure.
And so in that same way, I think that you can learn to more like create a seal versus needing it to be, let me clamp down with everything I've got.
Clenching everything, okay.
But initially, it might be. Just don't stay there. But that's half the battle. And if you check online, you can find a lot just about Kegels as if that is the end-all be-all, and it's not. It's at most half. Mm-hmm. At most. The other part of it, though, is energy has to move. It has to move. So if you just try to create a seal, that sexual energy that you build is going to just push through that seal. It's that's the way it knows. So you instead need to learn and train your body to be able to move that energy in your system some other way.
Yeah.
So this is there are various tools. I primarily use breath, sound, movement, and visualization as I lay out in my book to help move that energy up and through the body. Mm-hmm. And particularly, I'm a big fan of through all of the extremities, the
starfish
forelimbs of your book.
Yep.
Yep. You really have looked at the book. And through really learning to be able to light up your entire nervous system with your sexual turn on instead of just in your groin, you now have a much larger container for that sexual energy to fill. And it's like, as the pleasure is being stimulated, it's automatically lighting up through the whole system instead of just getting locked up and locked up and locked up. Pop.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. That's really useful. Thanks for all the guys.
You got it.
Huge. And again, I want to have guys come back to our episode 98 when we talked a lot about porn. So I don't want to get into porn, but we all know that's.
And I have a great chapter on it. Getting real with your relationship to porn. Please check it out.
Yep. Check that one out. I want to shift a little bit from sexuality to just some of the healing work before we stop today. Yeah. You talk about like forgiving your father, your first relationship with the feminine is your mother. Can you talk to the listener, why to men, like, why is it so important that we kind of deal with our stuff with our parents? Why does that matter on the journey?
Well, because whether it's in your consciousness or not, it's having an impact on your current relationships. And I ultimately got to see very clearly the ways in which that was true in my own life. And then, in the time since, I've been able to see it play out in so many of my clients' lives. And that willingness to confront, move through, heal those relationships ends up changing your current relationships, whether it's the specific relationship that you're currently in, or your next relationship will be different and you'll attract a different person. But if you are in committed relationship already, chances are it would end up creating some sort of dynamic shift in how you are with one another.
Yeah.
So I dove in really deeply about some of the deep familial wounds that I carried around each of my parents and the ways in which they played out in my adult relationships. For me, like, I grew up in a really broken home with a lot of volatility. And as I began getting into relationships in my late teenage years, and for the next almost 20, my relationships were really volatile.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want them to be. I wanted to do better and be better and all of that, but they just kept showing up and kept showing up. And it wasn't really until I started really improve those relationships. And it doesn't mean that you have to condone anything that your mother or your father did or how they were. Forgiveness is first and foremost for you. It changes something in you. It frees something in you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I lay it out in a way that I think makes my case, and you do what you will with it,
Yeah. It seems to me, in my experience with guys, a lot of guys aren't finished with their dad or mom, but just if we zero in on dad for a minute. And it's unbelievable how much it impedes them from their own personal sovereignty and power.
Yeah.
Around money, around sex, around relationships, around integrity, whatever the sort of domain is in life. And so I just want to kind of underscore this, the importance of, like, for me, it's less about forgiveness. It's more about like deep appreciation for whatever I got, whatever download I got, because it's helped shape me into who I am.
Those are individual choices. You brought up Data earlier, and David Data speaks of living like your father is dead. And I went a very different approach, which, my chapter on it is titled "Choose to Forgive Your Father."
Yeah.
It's a decidedly different energy.
Totally. Yeah, it's great though. It's awesome. Again, each guy has to walk his own path there. Yep. But the point I think Destin and I are trying to say is deal with your dad issues, because it's probably holding you back in your life.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'm curious, just a personal question for you. What have you noticed, like, in your own marriage and now being having a family? What of your work, of your book, what stands out as, do you think, the most important to be in terms of being a husband and being a dad?
God, it's so difficult to pick one. I'm going to land on two. Sorry, it's the best I can do.
Yeah.
Be a man of integrity and cultivate deep presence. Your integrity and how you show up in your word and your principles and your values with your family. I don't think it cannot be overstated. It's such a major thing. But then this element of presence, like, especially with my daughter, what I'm experiencing about love is consistency and just being there and showing up. And when with her, being with her and not like off on other things or think, being lost in like, oh, these are all my to-do lists I still need to take care of, or, her mom is upsetting me today because of X, Y, or Z, but like just really being with her. She's a completely present little being. So it's like, it's a really strong mirror. And, just being called into ongoing deeper presence and showing up with my integrity intact, I think, have both been the things that I cannot, any place that's even a minor chip in it showing up in those 100%, like I notice quickly, because it has a very real impact.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can see it right immediately.
Yeah.
Cool. Beautiful. Thanks. All right. As we wind down, one more question here. I ask all my guests. I don't think I was asking this when you came on last time, but one of our missions here at the Relationship School is to reach 1 million teens and young adults with, relationship education. We want kids to feel empowered. And if I had a room full of 1,000 teens, high schoolers, let's say, and I could only teach them one thing about relationships, and you could whisper in my ear, what would you want me to tell them?
I think that really starts with your relationship to yourself, and that piece around the acceptance and self-love while being committed to your growth, and then relating to your partners, lovers from that same place. Choose partners who have a willingness to introspect in that same way. And in that way, you can grow together. It's not going to be perfect. Relationship is designed to confront you and bring up all of the messy, unhealed parts within you. Don't run away from it.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Destin Gerek. Where can people find you and your book?
evolvedmasculine.com. Or if you want to go straight for the book, evolvedmasculinebook.com. Either way. Again, it's a lifetime of work for under $20 or under 10 if you go Kindle. It's a deal. And while every single page might not be for you, here's my guarantee. If you read the book and if there weren't 3 things in there that you don't have the potential to radically like alter your path, let me know. I'll send you your money back. So I really believe that. I believe in that, and try me. Just try me.
Cool. Man, there is a ton of value in this book, guys. Go get Destin's book. I think it's great. It's for men and women, really, but I think particularly guys are going to really appreciate not only your personal story throughout the book, but practical guidance and tools and just a frame on how to be an evolved man. So, Destin, thanks so much for all your hard work pouring into this book, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Okay, go check out Destin Gerek at evolvedmasculine.com. Check out his book, The Evolved Masculine, Be the Man the World Needs and the One She Craves. In particular, I think the chapters on sexuality and how to really be there for the feminine, I think are really, really good and useful. This is a nice alternative to Way of the Superior Man, if you've ever heard of that book by David Data. Because Destin covers life purpose, money, sex, and other things, and he weaves through his own personal story. So it's worth a read, okay? Check it out. All right. Action step from this episode to me and for the guys especially is in the bedroom, okay? Remember, if you're having issues with losing your erection, remember, trust your cock. And I have a lot of blog posts on this, and I have some very early episodes of the podcast on this. So go check those out. you got to trust that your cock is a barometer, all right? And it's sensitive. And what if you actually listened to it? And what if it was trying to tell you something you needed to hear? Yeah. And then if you're struggling with the other one, early ejaculation, I really liked what he was talking about moving the energy, dissipating the energy. So you can certainly try guy kegels. I do those from time to time to strengthen my PC muscle. And also the breathing exercise of just like big, long exhale, dissipating the energy, and an inhale to pull the energy through different parts of your body. I'm still working on that one. But I'm going to keep practicing. I want you to practice and report back. Let us know what you can if you want. And if you're not in our free relationship men's group, you can do that. You can join that group. And that's in Facebook, called Relationship Group for Men Only. And you can just type that in your search bar and you'll find it. I think it's a secret group or a private group. You'll have to answer some questions to get in, and there's a healthy dialogue with men only talking about their sex life, relationships, etc. And I'm in there frequently to offer support, okay? There's a lot of good guys in there. Okay, great. Thanks, guys, and look forward to hearing more from you soon. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast or my YouTube channel, please do that. YouTube channel is at Jason Gaddis on YouTube. And podcast, on your phone, you can subscribe right there. So make sure you do that so you can get a text message download every time a new episode comes out. All right. Ciao. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Share one of these videos with a friend. We want to help the planet get their act together around relationships. And you are one of them. So thank you.